Morning YouTube. This is the Home Handyman coming to you again with another small project. At the end of one of my videos, I had somebody write me and said, hey, I saw in the background you have this weird looking cowboy thing of horseshoes. Looks like he's got a penis on him. What is it? So I told him, well, I made it as a novelty thing for one of my neighbors who saw a picture of it online and said they'd love to have one. They looked real costly. I said, I can make you one cheaper and I can make it a hell of a lot better than what you saw online. So I went ahead and did it for him, and anyway, it turned out great. So that's what led to the comments, and I wasn't going to do this, but I thought, well, I've been selling these right and left at work, and from people emailing me, and I thought, okay, I don't mind. It isn't that hard to do. I'll show you how to do it. You've got horseshoes, okay, so we're going to do this in steps. I used a railroad spike and then I used horseshoes. You can use just horseshoes and substitute right here. This is the railroad spike. You can use a horseshoe if you want to, just the curvature, and do this. If you want railroad spikes, you can get them off eBay, Craigslist, and pretty much a lot of different areas online. They're cheap. So let's go through these. I'm going to do this in steps. That's the easiest way I found when I'm trying to tell people, you know, how to do something that I've done. So get your materials together first. I need 1, 2, 3 horseshoes, a bent railroad spike. I got to heat it up with an oxyacetylene, or you got a forge or whatever you got. Heat it up and bend this arc, or use a horseshoe. So, and then I got 2 great big bolts down here for his testicles. This is just a 1/4 inch scrap rod I had. That's all this is. His hat is just a thin piece of sheet metal scrap that was laying around that I just took. I cut it roughly and I used an angle grinder with, I think, 40 or 60 grit disc on there. You can use a grinding disc and ground it down to what it looked like a cowboy hat. This is nothing more than a bolt, and it's filled with MIG welding. These you don't have to bend. I bent his hands playing around with my torch while I had it out. I just heated them up, took a pair of ice grips and bent them. It gives it a little bit of a touch, I suppose, but you don't have to do this part. And then you have to have a way to weld. I have a MIG welder. Mine's a Miller Matic 211 auto set. That's a whole other video, like I keep saying. I can talk about that. It's one of my favorite tools, though. Or an oxyacetylene welder, or an arc welder, or some way to weld. So let's get our materials together. I'm going to lay them out here on the bench for you to see, and then we'll go to step 2. Okay, I got my bill of materials together, or my material list, whatever you want to call it. I got my 1, 2, 3 horseshoes. They're not in bad shape. If they're rusted up, that's fine. It'll just look that much more rustic when it's done. Okay, I got my little 1/4 inch rod. And whether you want to use your angle grinder and make a little bit of a point, or you have a bench grinder, that's all I did to this. That's it. Got my 2 bolts for the testicles, 3 horseshoes. I found some other bolts. I'm going to use that for his hat. Just weld them. And I'll show you how to do that later. Now, this is just a piece of, I think it's 12 gauge. It's still hot. That's why I'm bouncing it around. You can cut this with a jigsaw. You can cut this with a plasma cutter if you have one, or any way you want to cut it. Jigsaw might be easiest if you don't have a pair of shears to cut this. Then I just took my angle grinder and went down on the edge. Now I want to make this a little concave in here because it's so flat. You say, well, how do you do that? Well, you can do it 2 ways. Let me refocus. Actually, you could probably do it more than 2 ways now that I'm thinking about it. You can put a round piece of pipe into your vise, just like this, sticking up, because we're going to put it over the top and beat on it with a ball peen hammer. The other thing you can do, I made this out of just some scrap metal for bending pipe. I put that on the bottom. It'll sit into here. I'll show you right now and we'll use it. Okay, it's in there and it's anchored down nice and tight. Now, I'm going to hold that piece of sheet metal right here over this, and I'm going to whack it with a ball peen hammer. Watch, I'll show you. Alright, now you say, hey, I bent it too much. Okay, well, we're going to set it down. Okay, if this is curved up too much, flip it over, hit it with a hammer a few times, it levels it back out. Now your hat's ready to be welded. Now the next step is, I drew a black line about in the middle here on this one. I'm going to take my angle grinder and cut it. If you don't have one, you can use a hacksaw or jigsaw, whatever you want to use, but you have to cut it. Okay, we have to separate them. 1 minute, I'm going to do that. I'll be right back. Okay, I got my oxyacetylene torch hooked up, and I'm going to bend the hands of these a little bit. Now remember, you don't have to do this. We're going to. That's it. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to go put these in water, come back, and we'll show you the next step. Remember, you don't have to do this, and I keep saying that because people think, oh, I don't have an oxyacetylene torch at home or any way to heat it up. You don't have to do it. I only do it for the added touch. Hang on. Okay, so now I'm back at the welding bench. Now, I'm using one of those magnets I told you from Harbor Freight. They're inexpensive to hold this up. Now these points right here, you sit there and go, how am I going to line it up? Use the nails where the nails went through. See, there's one right here, there's one right here. This comes down. This makes it very easy. It's almost like it's got built-in markings for you. So I'm going to weld it here, and I'm going to weld it here. Then I'm going to stop, come back, and we'll move forward. Hold on just a sec. Okay, I decided to use one of the railroad spikes. Excuse me. And I heated it up right through here. Well, I heated it up right in here with my oxyacetylene. And you can see I just put a little bit down into here. You don't have to go very far. And then I hit it with one of my, well, they're like sledgehammers. Let me show you. Okay, I've got 2 ball peens, a little one, a medium. I've got 2 different size sledgehammers here. You can get these out at Harbor Freight. I think they're about $6-7 a piece. And they've come in real handy. They got nice handles on them. Like I said, some stuff maybe not worth buying at Harbor Freight, but these have lasted me a long time. I used that. I used the big one after this was red hot right in through here. And I just hit it forward about 2 or 3 times. That created the bend. That's all you got to do. If you don't want to do that, remember you can use the horseshoe. So I'm going to pause it, and we'll go back over to the workbench, and we'll go from there. Hang on just a sec. Okay, back at the workbench, went ahead and welded that one piece like I showed you. Then I drew a black mark about center. Then I got my railroad spike and I set it in there. So we're going to make his body now going up, and I'm going to weld that. I'll be right back. That's the next step. Alright, next is to weld the two bolts together to make his testicles. I put vice grips on both sides. That helps to hold it in place. 1 second, I'll show you that. Okay, next thing is I took that little 1/4 inch piece. I just held it on there with my hand. I just threw a couple of welds right here. That's it. This part is done. Now we're going to set up and do the arms. So hang on a second, we'll do that. Okay, next thing is to set up the arms for welding. So you just approximate where you think they'll look right. I use the magnets from Harbor Freight like I told you that I got, my third hand, and it'll hold it in place, and I'm going to put a weld there, and then we'll match the other one up on the other side. We'll weld it, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we got that welded up. Now, the next part, which works out really well, is the thickness of this magnet is the same thickness as the railroad spike, so it makes a nice flush mount for us to now put this on. It's a little hot still, I gotta be careful. And we're gonna just put that into place like that. I'm gonna weld it up here, and I'll be back and we'll go from there. I just don't want to get the splatter all over my camera lens, so however you're welding it is fine. This is how I do it, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, we're done welding all of his lower parts. Now it's time for the hat. Well, what I did with the hat before we start is I drilled a couple of holes in it because I got to weld it to the top of this. And I thought it might make it easier. I'm going to try it just for the heck of it. Let me zoom in and I'll show you the hat. Right there. So I'm going to hold it up here like this, and I'm going to weld it, and I'll be right back. Okay, that worked well. There's the little welds right there. Just put a couple, hold it on. Now I'm going to put this nut on there. Right like that. Now these are 2 little nuts. I usually use 1 big one, but I had these laying around. I thought I'd get rid of them because I'm not using them for anything anyway. So I'm going to weld that by just going right into here and welding it from the sheet metal to the nut, and then I'll put the other nut on, and then I'll fill it up. I'll show you here in just a sec. Okay, this is still red hot, you can see, but I took that MIG welder and I pointed it down in here, and I just built this up like this to create the top part of this hat. Now, somebody had asked me before on one of them, what happens if you get too much and it starts to slop over the edges or starts to look weird? Well, you can take your flap disc on your angle grinder, and I'll probably do that on this little bump here, and just take it down and round it off all the way around, and then just shape it up like this. It probably takes a matter of seconds to do it, you know, and then you're done. Alright, hang on, I'm going to put this under the water, put it back on the bench, and we'll talk about the results here. Okay, that should be it. It's that easy. Once you've made 1 or 2, it becomes really easy. And then I take a piece of sandpaper and I clean this rod up real well, because you're going to actually slide food over it. Okay, let me take a look. Questions and answers. Let me take a look. Okay, what can I do for a finish on this? Well, you can go down to your hardware store, you can get high heat, like black. They make different colors. You can look on Amazon. You could probably do almost any color you can think of, and they think they go up to like 500 and 1,000 degrees. 500 is probably enough for the barbecue, I'm guessing, but or you can just leave it like it is, and it's your choice. It's your project, whatever you'd like to do. The old rustic ones, they look better, but these are shiny new ones. This is what I had here to do this with. Okay, next question. How do you maintain it? Well, when you're done using it, wash it off just like you do anything else. Let it dry, and I just take and shoot a little Pam over it, or wipe it down with olive oil or vegetable oil or whatever you have, and just keep it ready for the next time. Let me see. No, you don't have to bend the arms. I was just showing you a simple way to make a jig. And, well, it's not really a jig. I just use vice grips this time. But you could put a thin diameter piece of pipe over this and actually just go like this and tweak them. You don't have to use vice grips. And I'm sure that there's more ways to do this than what I'm suggesting. And, okay, the hat. Yeah, you can use any piece of round pipe. Anything round that's got an opening. You can set it, grab it with vice grips. I just use my hand. I'm used to doing it. Hold it on there, beat around it with the ball peen part. There you go. I mean, it's pretty easy to do that. Where do I get my horseshoes? Well, there's a lot of barns down valley where my daughter goes. A lot of times the people, the shoers that come, the farriers, they don't care. They give my daughter a whole bunch of them. But you can find them on eBay. You can find them in different places. I think it's kind of expensive on eBay, but if that's your only way of getting them, I suppose it's better than nothing, because they add shipping and everything else. So anyway, farriers are a good place to check. You can maybe buy them cheap, or what I did is there's a farrier that came out there, and I make coat racks and signs and other things. I traded him. I made him a great, a really nice, I think it was 5 or 6 hook coat rack out of railroad ties and horseshoes, and that's another video that you'll see coming up on how to do that. And I made him when I gave it to him, and he gave me an enormous amount of horseshoes. I mean, just like boom. So that was a good trade. Happy for both of us, I guess. Let me see. Do I sell them? Yeah, I do. You can drop me a note if you're interested in the comments section, and I'll send you my email address. I've got a couple. There's one little shop. He buys them in bulk from me. But yeah, if you don't want to make this yourself and you really want me to, yeah, I can make them for you. They're a fun, laughable novelty gift if you want to give them as a gift to somebody, as a joke, playing around. The funny part about it is they actually do work. If you slide the hot dog on here, close your barbecue hood, I think the heat radiates from the metal up and cooks internally as well as the heat within the chamber. I haven't tried it personally, but the guy that I sell these to, he sells out of them really quick. So, same thing with the hat racks. I'll show you a video on that. It should post within a week right along with this one. Okay, what else let me see. Let me read this real quick. Do I have to prep these when you paint them? I would wipe it down with acetone real quick in a shop towel or paper towel, let it air dry, and then put that heat-proof paint on. One other thought. If you paint it, don't paint the wiener. Leave it open. You can sand it once in a while and just keep it steel, just like your kitchen utensils. Wipe it with oil, but I don't put anything on these. Just leave them totally steel. Okay, that's a bit for this project. Take a look in the near future for the one on coat racks coming up. That one will be a lot of fun too. I hope you subscribe. I'll show you more how-tos as I go along, and I'm just trying to show you step by step the nuts and bolts. No long introductions, no dragging my feet. I've cut all that stuff out in the video editing, and I tried just to give this to you in quick, easy steps that you can follow at home, and you'll have a hell of a lot of fun doing it. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you liked it. If you learned something, subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll talk to you soon. Home Handyman. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.